Imagine Europe in the early 1600s. Kingdoms are at war, religious tensions are boiling over, and armies are on the march. But beneath all the gunpowder and politics, a different kind of war was unfolding. A war fought not with swords, but with coins. A war over the very nature of money itself. This was the Kipper and Wipper Crisis, one of the strangest and most destructive financial collapses in European history. It's a forgotten story of how cities, princes, and even bishops began secretly sabotaging their own currencies, unleashing an inflationary storm that brought entire economies to their knees. 400 years later, this crisis feels hauntingly familiar. It's a story of greed, debt, and what happens when people lose trust in their money. To understand it, we need to go back to the early 17th century. The Holy Roman Empire, a sprawling patchwork of over 300 states, was a powder keg waiting to explode. In 1618, the 30 Years' War erupted, one of the bloodiest conflicts in European history. Wars are expensive, and the fragmented German states simply didn't have the gold or silver to pay for them. So, rulers turned to a very old and dangerous temptation: to make more money, by literally making more money. Back then, coins were made of silver. A 1 thaler coin, for instance, had a specific amount of silver, guaranteed by the ruler who issued it. That guarantee was everything. It was the trust that made trade possible. But desperate times called for desperate tricks. Princes and city councils started secretly reducing the silver in their coins. They'd mint new coins that looked identical but contained far less precious metal. They could then use these light coins to pay soldiers and clear debts at full face value. In effect, they were counterfeiting their own money. This practice became known as Kipper und Wipper, literally clipping and culling. Kippers were the money changers who sorted good coins from bad, and whippers referred to the scales they used to weigh them. What started as a local trick soon exploded into a continent-wide frenzy. Rulers started leasing out minting rights to private entrepreneurs or mint lords. These guys were given authority to strike coins for the state, and in return, they got a cut of the profits. Their business model was simple. The more coins they made, the more money they earned. They scoured the empire for silver, melting down old coins, jewelry, even church plates, anything they could get their hands on. Then they'd recast it into new, debased currency. A coin that once contained 90% silver might now have only 50% or 30% or even less. The difference was pure profit. At first, it seemed like a brilliant solution. Money was everywhere. Markets were flooded with new coins, armies were paid, and debts were settled. But it didn't take long for people to realize something was terribly wrong. Merchants began to notice that coins from certain regions felt lighter or tarnished faster. Foreign traders started refusing to accept certain currencies, demanding only good old coins. As confidence collapsed, the kippers, the money changers, were in a frenzy, weighing every single coin to separate the real silver from the fakes. And then came the inevitable consequence: hyperinflation. Prices soared overnight. A loaf of bread that once cost a few pennies now cost 10, then 20. People's wages couldn't keep up. Farmers refused to sell their grain for worthless money. Soldiers, realizing their pay bought them nothing, started to mutiny. By 1622, the crisis was catastrophic. The economy of the Holy Roman Empire was drowning in bad money. Each state blamed the others, accusing them of counterfeiting. It was a financial pandemic. And like all inflations, the Kipper and Wipper crisis hit the poorest people the hardest. Peasants, who had diligently saved silver coins, saw their life savings evaporate. Wages paid in the new, worthless currency lost value faster than they could be spent. Meanwhile, the rich, those who owned land, gold, or foreign assets, actually thrived. They could use their hard money to buy up real goods and property while the rest of society watched prices spiral out of reach. Markets broke down completely. Cities began to starve. Chroniclers in Saxony described people rioting at markets, screaming that they had money but no bread. The policy that was supposed to fund the war had created an economic war of all against all. Finally, by 1623, the Emperor Ferdinand II had to step in. He ordered the closure of hundreds of these rogue mints and decreed that all the debased coins be taken out of circulation. A new, standardized coin, the Reichstaler, was introduced to restore order. But the cleanup was just as painful. The new coins were based on real silver content again, which meant all the fake coins in people's hands suddenly became worthless. Anyone who had trusted the state lost everything. The money miracle was over, leaving behind bankrupt cities, ruined merchants, and a deep, shattered trust. Economists estimate that some regions lost over 90% of their monetary value in just a few years. But it wasn't just about money. It was about confidence. People turned to bartering. In some places, grain and livestock became more reliable currency than silver coins. The Kipper and Wipper years became a grim lesson. When money dies, society begins to follow. So why did it happen? Why would rulers knowingly destroy their own currencies? Part of it was desperation. The 30 Years' War was a vortex, consuming men, materials, and money. Minting was a quick and easy way to raise funds without political pushback. But there was also a dangerous psychology at play. Each prince believed he could outsmart the others. He'd debase his coins just a little, spend them fast, and buy real goods before anyone else caught on. It was a race to the bottom, a 17th century currency war. And just like all currency wars, it ended with everyone losing. This story might seem like a dusty piece of history, but its echoes are everywhere. You can see the same pattern in the hyperinflation of 1920s Germany, in modern debt crises, and even in today's debates about printing money. Every era has its own version of the Kipper und Wipper, a time when leaders believe they can cheat economic reality. What makes this crisis so profound is how it tied monetary collapse directly to moral collapse. A coin wasn't just a piece of metal, it was a symbol of trust between a ruler and their people. When that trust was broken, society itself unraveled. After 1623, the European economy slowly began to stabilize, but the scars of inflation lasted for decades. The memory of the Kipper and Wipper years became a cautionary tale, a warning that the greatest enemy of money isn't a counterfeiter or a thief. It's the government that abuses its own power. 4 centuries later, the technology has changed, but the temptation hasn't. Central banks don't melt silver anymore, but they can create digital money with a keystroke. And when economies falter, printing more money can still seem like the easiest way out. The first effects might even feel like a miracle, but beneath the surface, something fragile begins to break. The public's faith that their money will hold its value. And that faith is the real currency of any civilization. The Kipper and Wipper crisis is a timeless lesson. Money isn't magic. It's a contract, a promise. When that promise is betrayed, when short-term gains are chosen over long-term trust, collapse is inevitable. The people of the Holy Roman Empire learned that when the silver was gone and the markets were empty, they hadn't just lost their money. They'd lost the very foundation of their world. Thanks for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories you might have missed in school. See you next time.